Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to this special Reading Reset webinar. My name's Emma Braithwaite, and I'm Head of Skills and Engagement at the Reading Agency. For anyone who doesn't know us, we're a UK charity that's on a mission to inspire personal and social change through reading. And we believe, and hopefully all of you do too, that reading has the power to transform lives, and it's needed now more than ever. Now, we've all seen the recent headlines and research about the very real crisis in children's reading engagement and enjoyment. We're going to spend some time exploring that issue this afternoon and also looking at some of the things that can really help, including the Teachers Reading Challenge, which is a programme delivered by the Reading Agency in partnership with the Open University. So you can hear from some of my lovely colleagues at the Reading Agency, as well as Professor Teresa Kremen from the Open University, and also a special message from one of our champions at the end of the session, Bobby Siegel. But first, I'd like to introduce the brilliant Alison David, Consumer Insight Director at HarperCollins, who are sponsors of the Teachers Reading Challenge. Over to you, Alison.
Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar. I'm just speaking for HarperCollins here because we're absolutely delighted to be supporting this reading challenge because we're passionate, as everybody is, about the power of reading to transform lives. And this is such an exciting initiative, and I know it's going to have a huge impact on children's reading. So yes, we do all know that there's a crisis in children's reading for pleasure. Fewer children enjoy reading than ever before. And so the outcome of that is that most children now read really very infrequently, and some don't even read at all for fun. And of course, this has serious implications for children's life chances, for their attainment, for their well-being. So at HarperCollins, we've been researching the reasons for the decline in children's reading and also seeking solutions to that since 2012. One of the things none of you will be surprised about, but one of the things is that we know a really big reason for the decline is that many children are not being read to at home anymore. So I just wanted to share with you the example of 5 to 7-year-olds. So only 36% of them are read to every day at home now. And back in 2012, which isn't that long ago, it was 52%. So that's a huge, huge decline in just a few years. What it means is with no regular reading routine, really, not being read to very often, not perhaps having reading role models at home, children just don't think of reading as fun or even really having very much potential for enjoyment. And instead, what we're seeing is they're typically increasingly equating it with the tedium of schoolwork and homework. It's a task, it's something they're tested on, they think they can do well or badly in reading. It's not something that they would choose to do in their free time. Well, at HarperCollins, we published to try to spark joy and imagination, voices and stories that really help children see themselves in books. And we know this is so important because books have to feel relevant to children. And there is a huge choice, but despite this huge choice, children often just don't know it. They don't know what kind of books they'd like, what genres, what authors. And we do know from all our work that teachers are absolutely a key part of the solution. So important in turning it around because you're the gatekeepers to wonderful reading experiences for children. And we know that you can change the atmosphere around reading by guiding children to books that they'll enjoy and by showing and sharing enjoyment in reading with them. And I think by matching children's interests with books that really speak to them, contemporary literature that reflect their experiences and their lives, relevant, compelling stories, and by giving them lots and lots of choice, it really is possible to engage children and change their minds about reading. I'm aware, of course, that this isn't as simple as it sounds, because there are literally thousands of new children's books published every year, and kind of being in the know is quite the task. And this is where the Teachers Reading Challenge comes in, because it provides teachers with access to the latest, most engaging children's literature, supporting professional development of educators as reading advocates, and contributing to the national effort to rebuild reading culture in schools. So we are at HarperCollins completely thrilled to be partnering and supporting the Reading Agency in this challenge. And we really think that together we can encourage children to read and create a new generation of lifelong readers. And I personally think it's one of the most important things that we can ever do for children. So we're here to support you in this journey. So we've got lots of tips and resources from HarperCollins, including on our Book Squad website, which is our Reading for Pleasure resource for teachers and educators. And there you can find plenty of inspiration and more about our research. And we have author ambassadors as well offering support. So that's all from me. I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Karina Spalding, the Reading Agency's Head of Research and Evaluation, who's going to tell you more.
Thank you, Alison, and thank you so much for having me here today. I'm going to start with a statistic that I'm sure many, if not most of you, will have heard before, which is that OECD research shows that choosing to read is the single biggest indicator of a child's future life chances, even more so than parents' level of education or socioeconomic background. You know that reading for pleasure can mediate socioeconomic status, and it may even help to address endemic inequalities. That single, influential, and widely cited piece of data shows that extraordinary impact of books and reading. And I know that everyone attending here today and watching this online is committed to making reading part of children's lives, children and young people's lives. We know that creating and curating stories that children and young people actually want to read can not only get them started on that reading journey, but it sets them up for their entire lives. The national primary curriculum in England identifies the importance of focusing on reading motivation and reading for pleasure. It sounds so obvious, but the data clearly demonstrates too that when children and young people enjoy reading, they read more often, having a positive impact on those vital reading skills, meaning that they enjoy reading more, meaning that they read more often, and having that wider impact on their mental well-being, self-confidence, and overall learning. We also know that that extends into adulthood. Our data here at the Reading Agency shows that 75% of regular readers as an adult say that they enjoyed reading as a child, showing that lifelong impact of starting a reading habit at an early age. So given the evidence about the importance of children's reading to life chances and its foundational role in creating happy, healthy, and prosperous lives, the current data around declining engagement is deeply alarming. A recent report released by HarperCollins Children's Books and Far Short shows a steady decline in children's reading behaviors over the past 13 years. The proportion of children reporting that they read every day or nearly every day has dropped across all age groups, with the most drastic decline seen amongst 8 to 10-year-olds. Around 1 in 3 children between 5 to 10 read 4 or more days a week, down from well over half in 2012. That proportion drops to 1 in 5 11 to 13-year-olds and just 1 in 8 14 to 17-year-olds. The data highlights a similar decline in reading enjoyment. National Literacy Trust reported just last month that only 1 in 3 children now say that they enjoy reading, the lowest levels that they've tracked in 20 years. And our own data here at the Reading Agency found that just 50% of adults read in their spare time, and 15% of adults never read for pleasure, with 1 in 4 young people aged 16 to 24 saying they've never been a reader, they don't read regularly now, and they've never been a reader, meaning that that didn't start in childhood. And just over a quarter of adults say that they read every day, which means children are not seeing those positive reading role models at home to reinforce the habit. So what does the data show about barriers? I don't have a slide on this, but just to talk about them more generally: lack of time, lack of confidence in reading itself, but also in choosing what to read, and lack of choice are all cited by children and teens as factors in what's stopping them from reading, as well as the pull of a range of distractions, so distractions such as schoolwork, social activities, family commitments, as well as for around 1 in 5 children feeling judged by the adults around them for their reading choices. Our data has also found that for young people especially, they've told us that more guidance and support in knowing where and how to find reading material that interests them and is relevant to their lives would help them to read more frequently. So with these multifaceted challenges at home and the wider community, we know that classrooms and school and public librarians have an important role to play in encouraging a love of reading and offering that guidance and support. Yet we also know that schools and yourselves are understandably struggling to tackle that crisis alone within the confines of the curriculum. We know that building a reading community is not about that curriculum alone, but about creating a wider reading culture and fostering that love of reading at a foundational level. So I'll now pass over to my colleague Emma to share more on that point.
Thank you, Karina. So yes, a little bit of a gloomy picture in some ways, but this, as the Reading Agency, working with our partners, sponsors, other organisations in the sector, as well as with families, library services, and of course teachers, we think we have a magic formula to bring the joy back. This is based on 25 years of reading agency programmes and projects and partnerships. As my colleague, also Emma, mentioned, at the Reading Agency, we work with individuals of all ages, communities and trusted partners to share that transformative benefit of reading for happy, healthy and thriving lives. And you can see we reach over 2 million people annually, but of course, with a population of over 67 million, we're always looking for new ways to spread the power and joy of reading further. Our approach, it's rooted in pedagogy, practice and partnership. So firstly, it's all about fun. As Karina said, you won't necessarily want to read unless you're enjoying it. It seems really obvious, but it's so true. We all know how important reading is for learning and for educational progress, but we've all also seen that child who struggles or who focuses purely on that kind of mechanical necessity of reading. It can become a chore. No one wants to be told to sort of eat their broccoli. So we focus on the fun in our programs. We unlock the joy of reading and of sharing stories. Secondly, free choice. Again, it's been mentioned already, but it's so important. Children want agency in selecting that reading material, which obviously depends on good curation, the ability to experiment, to pick up a book and then put it down if you don't like it, to put it back. And then, of course, free access to content. And so, of course, this is where public libraries and school libraries are invaluable for all of those things, the curation, experimentation, and free access. We've found that in our programme, representation and inclusion are vital, and it's really sort of essential that children see themselves, their lives, their cultures, their communities in the books that they read. And also, of course, that content is accessible for all, including children with specific reading needs like dyslexia. And finally, activate. It's not enough, of course, to just give a child a book. Those who are less confident and are currently not choosing to read, they need encouragement, they need incentives, and they need enrichment activities to help them into books. So how do we reframe reading and how do we reset our expectations of what it looks like? If I asked you to think about a reader, what's the image that comes to mind? For most people, it might be something like, it might be the previous slide, but we had a little picture of Matilda sitting on her pile of books. A single, solitary, silent child with their nose in a book. But of course, this isn't all that comprises reading. Reading can be highly social. Reading your favourite parts aloud, listening to audiobooks together, pointing out a favourite picture, recommending things to friends and family, discussing the characters, plot or world of a novel, book clubs, staff room chats, the list goes on. I mean, you can see here the children reading magazines. You know, imagine that child reading a Minecraft magazine and then boring you to bits with all of their facts about Minecraft. That is reading too. We must stop thinking that there's a right way to read, because lots of children have absorbed that idea that there's proper reading and that sitting with a big challenging chapter book, silent and alone. It's up to us to show them the diverse forms that reading can take and all the exciting options that are out there, whether that's graphic novels, comics, magazines, audiobooks, noisy, boisterous book clubs where they can share opinions and rate their reads. These are just some of the ways that we can boost engagement and enjoyment of reading simply by moving the dial and widening children's conception of what it means to be a reader. So I'm going to pass over to my colleague Alex, who's going to explain how the Teachers' Reading Challenge can help.
Thanks, Emma. So yeah, how can we all be part of the solution in the face of this children's reading crisis? Well, the Teachers' Reading Challenge began during the days of the COVID lockdown, and it was put together in partnership with the Open University's Reading for Pleasure team as a response to the findings that many teaching staff struggled to find time to read contemporary, diverse children's literature. So when it came to recommending books for their class, they'd often have to rely on what they already knew. The Teachers' Reading Challenge was offering them a way to refresh and update that knowledge, to find the brilliant books that would unlock the power of reading for their students. And, like the children who do the Summer Reading Challenge, get some physical rewards and digital badges along the way as they do the challenge. I should mention that despite the name, the Teachers' Reading Challenge is not just about teachers. It really is for any educational professional. So from librarians, teaching assistants, and people at all stages of their career within education, including students and heads. Imagine that child in your class. They can read, they don't struggle with it mechanically, but there's no joy in it for them and there's no excitement. They think of reading as something they just have to do in order to learn, and there's a million other things that they'd rather do before reading. Until you're able to give them that book that just clicks. And maybe it's because they see themselves, as Emma mentioned, their lives, their communities represented, or maybe it just takes them into a completely different world that they're completely absorbed by. Maybe it's non-fiction, poetry, or a graphic novel rather than that traditional storybook. Whatever it is, now they have the bug, and they're asking for more books like that one. I'm now going to pass over to Professor Teresa Kremin, one of our partners at the Open University Reading for Pleasure team, to talk about how the Teachers Reading Challenge can be an important part of building a rich reading for pleasure culture in your classroom.
Thank you, Alex. What I'm going to talk about is developing the pedagogy which lines up with your knowledge. If you have wider knowledge, then sharing that wider knowledge is critical to the agenda, as indeed Jenny Jealous is here in her school. So I'm just going to share some of the strategies that you might use when you've got a wider knowledge developed from the Teachers Reading Challenge. Our own research back in 2014 and then developed a bit further by me in 2019 highlights that there are 4 key strands of sharing our knowledge: through reading aloud, as Emma's already mentioned, through talking about text in that social environment, that wider social reading environment, and then giving independent reading time. Some of that reading time will be silent, and some of it may be a shared time, a time in which children read and talk to one another. So book talk weaving through those elements of this highly social reading for pleasure pedagogy, which balances both the reading on my own to develop my stamina, my desire, my commitment to the series, for example, but also reading with and to others and talking to others about what I'm reading. So it's not really what we do as educators, it's why we do it and the way we do it that makes the difference as to whether the young people are choosing to read in their time when they go home. And our research suggests that reading for pleasure pedagogy must be led by the young people, highly informal, in contrast perhaps to comprehension or phonics teaching, very social, as several of us have mentioned, and supported by those texts that tempt the young people, not texts that tempt the teacher. So I might be teaching a fabulous book by Marcus Sedgwick, for example, Floodland, to the class for comprehension, but in reading for pleasure, I'm reading a range of other texts to this class to tempt them and to widen their knowledge of children's texts and authors so that they might choose from the library, from the book corner, to take home. So helping your reading for pleasure pedagogy to be LIST is a key piece of this journey. And in fact, the World Book Day have picked up the same acronym from our research and are using it there. So I just want to give you a few quick examples of making it more LIST. So creating these reading environments that are social. They're not just about beautiful displays, they're about spaces in which we can read, share, alone and together, chat to one another and feel that conviviality, that communality around reading during those moments. Certainly, if you're thinking about reading aloud, then we need to be thinking, what range are we reading from? And the wider the range of our reading, the richer the range of text that we have available to share with the young people. So if we widen our repertoires, we're also going to be widening the repertoires of the young people in her class, because we can't make children read for pleasure, but we can invite, we can model, we can engage them in the rich texts that are available. But a big question, of course, there is who chooses? Because if this reading for pleasure pedagogy is meant to be learner-led, then shouldn't the children sometimes choose? And as we've argued for many years now, if we give children regularly the chance, what do you feel like today? You feel like listening to Superworm or Jim and the Beanstalk? And giving children the chance to vote enables them to feel some volition in the process. After all, if I've noticed that one of the children in my class really wanted to have whatever it might be, the crow's tail, those 2 who wanted it, couldn't they have it for drop everything and read time this afternoon and have a good look, even though I read aloud Ruby's Worry to the class? So we honour their interests, but we give them more volition in the process. And certainly many studies from right across the world, as well as our own, highlight the need for read aloud to be that relaxed space where the children's questions, not our questions, come to the fore, the children's observations of the text. So that leads to that motivated engagement, both in the read aloud and in the independent volitional reading at home. And thinking of the third strand of RFP pedagogy then is that informal book talk and recommendations. And as Guthrie's work said right back in the 80s, engaged readers are keen, they're motivated, and they're socially interactive about what they read. Of course, there will be days when children are buried in a text and don't want anybody to talk to anybody about it. They're dying to find out what happens next, or to find out more facts about dinosaurs or trucks. And they don't want to talk to others. But there'll be plenty of days when sharing the experience of reading matters, and that enables them to feel supported within that wider reading environment. So you might, as many schools are now doing, try to buy in and widen your knowledge, but then get a second copy. You've read perhaps Jemima Small versus the Universe, Key Stage 3 text really, and then you're saying, okay, I'm going to get a second copy. School can afford 2 copies of this, let's hope, because then the young people can read with a friend, buddying up, sharing the story, not trying to race through, but sharing the experience as they travel together and talk about it. Or indeed, 2 children in the class can read at different speeds or different times, but more children have had the chance to then have a discussion around the graphic novels that they're reading with a friend. And then turning to reading for pleasure, pedagogy in terms of reading time. Children do need more support, I think, than we currently give them to make wise choices. If you make wise choices, then create a legacy of past satisfaction and pleasure that drives you forward. But I think we may need to spend more time as an education profession in supporting their browsing, in supporting that careful selection so that accessibility and interest are balanced and they're able to make the choice that satisfies them, that gives them that sense of pleasure, fun, and engagement. And during that, everybody reading in class time, Eric, or drop everything and read, dear time, whatever you call it, sometimes they'll want some time for conversation. 2 minutes at the beginning, perhaps, or 2 minutes at the end, or maybe during. And you look up and see several young people are not concentrating anymore. They've lost concentration. Concentration span is challenging in an era of screens and the allure of gratification of speed reading on your phone. So it's really important, I think, that we pay attention to when things go to a fray and then stop and say, what's going on in your story now? If you're reading a fact, what fact did you find out? Were you reading a non-fiction book? What fact did you find out? What picture do you like best? Can you share it with a friend? And then perhaps turn back to that time. So we're balancing the me time, reading on my own, with the we time, reading together. On the Open University's website, there are plenty of examples of practice, and indeed the pedagogy I've just described. There are rich examples from teachers there of the ways in which they've developed that pedagogy. So borrowing from that rich, wider repertoire you've got of text through the Teachers Reading Challenge, you're then able to make more of a difference to the children themselves. And there are posters, for example, about those 4 pedagogies that I've just highlighted and that you might want to share with staff, so that over time, you're drawing on the resources, both from the Reading Agency and from the OU, to help you move the agenda forward, to create those cultures of reading in your classrooms and more widely across the school, from starting point, widening your own repertoire of knowledge of children's texts that challenge and excite and interest you, texts you want to share with the young people, and then listening to the ones they want to share with you. So to nurture the habit, as the reading framework highlights, schools need a strategic approach rather than a bit of a random collection of eclectic reading for pleasure activities. We need to avoid activity country and be strategic and planned about creating a pedagogy which is responsive to our youngsters and is enriched by our knowledge of text. So I hope that was useful. Thank you. Alex, do take the screen back.
Thank you very much, Teresa. So what do you get when you sign up for the Teachers Reading Challenge? Well, when you sign up, you will have your own login and you'll have a profile page on the website. You can log the books you've read and review them, and you can also put those books towards a badge. So say you're doing a poetry power badge and you've just read Joseph Coelho, Poems from a Tower Block. On the website, you'll be able to assign that book to that badge. One of the most motivating and fun aspects of the challenge is the badges. These aren't just digital tokens, they're a celebration of your reading journey and are a way to help you broaden your knowledge of children's and young adults literature in meaningful, inclusive and joyful ways. So let's have a look at some of the badges that you can earn this year. Firstly, we've got Poetry Power. So if you're looking to expand your poetry toolkit, this badge is for you. You can explore diverse and engaging poetry collections that will spark ideas for the classroom and maybe even inspire you to write your own on the way. We've also got Black British Brilliance, which highlights the incredible work of Black British authors. If you're looking to diversify your bookshelf with authentic voices and stories that reflect a wide range of British Black experiences, then this is the place to start. We've also got a new Laugh Out Loud badge. Sometimes we know that a good laugh is exactly what's needed, particularly in the classroom, and this badge celebrates the funniest, wittiest reads out there, perfect for finding those books that make your students laugh, and hopefully you as well. We know that graphic novels continue to be a game changer in engaging reluctant readers and tackling big themes in accessible ways. So earning our Great Graphic Novels badge will help you to stay up to date with powerful page-turning titles. Rebel Girls lets you celebrate fierce female protagonists and inspiring real-life heroines. Whether it's fiction or non-fiction, you'll find bold, brave characters that will leave a lasting impression on your readers. We've also got We Are Family Too, which shines a spotlight on books that celebrate families in all their beautiful diversity, because we know that not all families look the same, and every child deserves to see their family unit represented in literature and in books. And then finally, we've also got something a bit more personal. Our I Choose 5 badges let you take the lead. You can pick 5 books that reflect the interests, cultures, and experiences of your pupils, books that you believe will make the biggest impact. And that's really about your professional judgment. So your knowledge of your learners celebrated with a badge. So whether you're diving into verse, embracing laughter, or championing underrepresented voices, there will be a badge for every reader and teacher. These badges aren't just about ticking boxes, they're about professional development, classroom impact, and most of all, the joy of reading. And I should add here that we will also be adding new badges every year. So if you've got ideas for a badge as you're taking part in the challenge, please do let us know, drop us a line, and we'll look at adding those in years to come. Once you've signed up, you will also get a newsletter with book recommendations, and we've made sure that these book lists are provided by teachers, school librarians, and our expert team so that they're recommended and peer recommended straight into your inbox. The newsletters also have links to author events, book activity packs, and other resources and activity sheets. We'll also be featuring guest blog posts along the way, which we hope is a perfect tea break read, one that can give you lots of ideas and useful materials. As well as all of the brilliant info on the Teachers Reading Challenge site, you will get, as Teresa mentioned, all of the access to the Open University's Reading for Pleasure info, a really brilliant tool and online Reading for Pleasure treasure trove of ideas and best practice. It will help you to create a thriving Reading for Pleasure culture in your classroom, library, and indeed whole school. You'll get a branded poster, something to proudly proclaim that you're taking part, and a reading record to display in your classroom or library. Because a huge thing about the Teachers Reading Challenge is showing young people that you're enjoying reading and that you're choosing to do it and that you're passionate about it. At the end of the challenge, you'll also receive a certificate and you can celebrate with your school. We do lots of competitions and giveaways with prizes like book bundles and opportunities to enrich your school library or classroom book corner. It's worth saying as well that the Teachers Reading Challenge works in perfect tandem with the Reading Agency's flagship children's programme, the Summer Reading Challenge, helping schools to build a positive reading culture through community engagement. They're really designed to complement the curriculum by sustaining literacy habits through the school holidays and bridging the reading gap. The Summer Reading Challenge is one of the most effective national reading interventions available. It's free to access, widely scalable, and built on 25 years of evidence. So let's explore how it works and why your school and library can be key to reaching even more children with its benefits, as well as the challenge, giving your class some brilliant reading experiences in the lead up to the end of term. So the Summer Reading Challenge is completely free, and it's an annual 8-week reading programme co-delivered by the Reading Agency with public libraries across the UK. And it's designed to keep children reading over the summer break. And we know that it works. The challenge consistently increases children's reading frequency, their confidence in their reading skills, and crucially, that reading enjoyment. Research funded by Arts Council England shows that children who take part in the challenge see a statistically significant improvement in reading confidence compared to non-participants. And perhaps more importantly, the Summer Reading Challenge generates a real buzz around reading and makes it fun. Nothing compares to the excitement of a sign-up Saturday or the celebratory end of challenge medal ceremonies happening in schools and libraries across the country. The formula clearly works. with over 500,000 children taking part last year and over 100,000 new library cards issued, and more than 13 million books read or borrowed, including ebooks and audiobooks. What's even more encouraging is that 95% of children who take part say that they now read for enjoyment at least once a week. Independent research shows that the Summer Reading Challenge enhances children's reading engagement, with multi-regression analysis revealing participants increased their reading enjoyment, reading frequency, and confidence in their own reading ability compared to those who did not take part. Most crucially, these positive changes were identified for keen readers and less confident readers alike, with the impacts found to continue into the school year. The Summer Reading Challenge really is for every child, so we really encourage you to head over to the School Zone on the Summer Reading Challenge website and download your free schools pack, which has lots of promotional materials that you can use as the end of term approaches. So thank you all very much for joining us today as we launch the Teachers Reading Challenge 2025. And as we've seen throughout this inspiring session today, transforming our approach to reading really starts with us, rekindling the joy and deep connection that books can bring into our classrooms. Before we close today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you have any questions or need further information, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Your feedback's really important as we work to build a vibrant reading culture together. Just a note as well that today's session is being recorded and we'll be circulating it and sharing a link. So for anyone who'd like to catch up, or if you'd like to refresh or share with colleagues, please do following the session. A special thank you also goes out to our invaluable partners at Open University and our sponsors HarperCollins, who joined us today and whose support has made this challenge possible. Your commitment to helping us shape a future where every child discovers the pleasure and power of reading is vital. Let's continue to challenge the crisis, reignite our passion for reading, and create classrooms where every student finds their next great book. Thank you. Before we end, though, I just wanted to, in the spirit of the Teachers Reading Challenge, throw a question open to our panelists to see if anyone had any ideas for recommended reads that they'd like to share with our attendees today to kickstart their challenge. So anyone from the Reading Agency team, or Alison or Teresa, if you'd like to, any thoughts or recommendations?
I'm happy to leap in. I absolutely adore this Finn Jones Is Here. If you haven't read it, Simon James Green, full of pathos and hilarity. And I don't choose to read books that make me laugh. That isn't me. That's not me as a reader. It's not my penchant. But this man makes me laugh and he makes me cry. And his more recent one, The Double Life of Ted Amos, is equally as brilliant. But if you want just one to read across the summer, then go for Finn Jones Is Here. You can't go wrong. I literally came out of a meeting this afternoon where 3 people in the chat line were going, "That's it, the best book I've ever read." They were all teachers right across the country. So those are my recs.
Brilliant. Thank you, Teresa. Emma, I can see you've got one lined up there.
Well, I just finished this one, which is Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4, but really feels like a very timely book, which kind of looks at masculinity but in a very funny, accessible way, and kind of deals with some quite sensitive themes, and also manages to really kind of zip along. It's a lovely kind of exploration of friendship, and a kind of coming of age story for the young protagonist. So I'd really recommend that one.
Amazing. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Emma. Yes, I think I was shortlisted for the Carnegie Awards, wasn't it? Which is always a good source of recommendations as well. I've got a few as well, Alex. So I had a little look at our official Summer Reading Challenge book collection. It's one of my great pleasures of working my way through those over the summer. So some I've been enjoying recently. We heard earlier about how some children really like fact books and kind of non-fiction, and that can be really accessible. So a couple that I really like. We've got one called Slug Life by Moesha Kellaway, which is a great title. It's about a very grumpy slug. So it's sort of silly and colourful, but also has those brilliant kind of facts and stats and lists that a lot of children really enjoy. Sort of along those lines as well, there's Hamza's Wild World from the lovely Hamza Yassin, if you know him from the BBC Wildlife presenter, or if you are Strictly Come Dancing fans. And that's all about fact about animals. The one other thing I really like about that book is it was made in consultation with Dyslexia Scotland. So it's got a lovely dyslexia-friendly layout. So that's a nice one to consider if your pupils have dyslexia. If the pupils in your class love a sort of adventure story, definitely recommend Wildlands by Brogan Murphy, which has just been nominated for the Wainwright Prize. I think that's brilliant, about two sisters getting sort of lost in this rewilded land and getting into all sorts of scrapes. So that's a really lovely one. And then if you want to learn more about kind of graphic novels, one I definitely recommend would be Hilda and the Twig, which is a series from Luke Pearson. The most beautiful illustrations, really kind of funny and heartfelt stories. And one of the interesting things about that is it's also an animated series on Netflix. We know children love watching telly as well, so that could be a nice way to get them into books and kind of showing them that that Netflix series as well. So if they like kind of comics and manga, that's a nice one. So yeah, those are some of my favourites from the Summer Reading Challenge list, Alex.
Thank you, Emma. And just to say, on the topic of the Summer Reading Challenge book list as well, I've been making my way through Supersized Squirrel, which is the illustrations for graphic novel recommendations. The illustrations are just so beautiful. It's a really accessible book, and it's got a radioactive meteor and mutant animals, and yeah, lots of fun and adventure. So that's my recommendation. Great, and I can see some really nice thoughts coming through in the chat as well, which is lovely. Simon Green, King of Nothing. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining, everyone. And yeah, as I say, let's continue to kind of challenge this crisis and reignite our passion for reading and create classrooms where every student can find their next great book. Thank you for joining us today, and we really look forward to connecting with you soon. Before we leave today, though, I just want to kind of hand over our final word to our ambassador, Bobby Seagull, who's a renowned teacher and author who's going to give some words of encouragement about your challenge this year. So I will just hand over to Bobby.
Hi everyone, I'm Bobby Seagull, a teacher, writer, TV broadcaster and proud ambassador for the Reading Agency, the charity behind this year's Teachers Reading Challenge. Reading for pleasure is one of the most powerful tools we have to unlock young minds. And as teachers, it starts with us. That's why the Teachers Reading Challenge is here, to help you discover brilliant children's books and build a reading culture in your school that really sticks. You will get access to fantastic resources from Open University, book prizes and even author events. And it all counts as meaningful CPD. So whether you're a classroom teacher, teaching assistant, school librarian or senior leader, this challenge is for you. Join thousands of educators across the UK in making reading the heart of your school. Sign up today and let's show our students just how powerful reading, books and stories can be. Let's inspire through reading. Good luck with your challenge.